It doesn't say that. Oh yeah, no,
There
it
we go.
is.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Are
Oh
we
Well,
yeah,
live?
it's live. It's live. It's
yeah.
We're live.
official.
No, I see a bar
Yeah, we're live.
floating.
Oh, it's live. It's live.
Okay.
There it is.
Well,
And if you need a little bit
believe
more time,
you.
I know that people are going to really want to hear your song, Carrie. So we can either do that at the end, at the
I see
beginning.
us. I see us live. Okay.
So Tim, didn't you have a question to
Tim has a
lead us off,
question.
right?
Our first question.
Oh yeah, I think I did. So our friend, the Sultan of Savings, the guru of gift cards, Stephen Pepper, just took a anniversary. And this is your 20th anniversary trip?
This was our 20th, yes.
Yeah. He took a 20th anniversary trip worthy of 2 decades of pepperish decadence, where he traipsed his wife all over the world as they celebrated each other in 20 years of being together. Actually, more than 20 years, really, because you dated for what, like at least 6 months before you got engaged.
Yeah, so yeah, we'd known each other about a year before we got married.
Yeah, so 21 years, we'll call it that. But so anyway, part of that was
Can't believe that.
you stopped in the Maldives
Yes.
at the Conrad Maldives
Yes.
and just wrote a lovely and authoritative, in my opinion, review on the Conrad Maldives. So, but my question for you, because everybody always asks us this, is now that you've been there, is the Maldives worth it? Was the Maldives worth it for you? And you don't have to make a grand pronouncement. For you,
Yeah.
was the Maldives worth it?
For us, it absolutely was. So like my overall answer will be yes, but so yes, it absolutely was worth it for us because we our honeymoon was over to Ireland because that was what my kind of like wife's dream honeymoon destination was at the time. But then like 2 or 3 years into our marriage, she learned about the Maldives and she was like, gotta go there. Like and that we should celebrate like an anniversary there. And so what we do every 10 years, we've decided to renew our vows. So 10 years we decided to do in Australia, 20 years we decided we do in the Maldives. And we're trying to decide whether to do the Waldorf Astoria or the Conrad, and the Waldorf Astoria would be fantastic. Like their overwater villas are absolutely amazing looking there. I want to say like 2 or 3 thousand square foot or something crazy like that. And so it looks incredible, but we wanted to do the Conrad Maltese because we also wanted to eat at the underwater restaurant that they have there for our anniversary dinner. And so we got to do that. We had a fantastic time there. I'd seen people mention before that going to the Maldives, like they think that they'll get bored after 2 or 3 days. And I honestly thought that that was going to be the case for me. We did 8 days there and I didn't get bored. Like it almost felt like it would have been nice to have had another couple of days there. Like even though we were just kind of like lazing around and things like that, the days went by super quickly. So absolutely worth it for a special occasion like that. Just for a general vacation, it's a long way to fly and an expensive place to go to, both in terms of getting to the resort and being like captive audience for their restaurants, and so having to spend a lot on food and drink there. So it's not somewhere I would necessarily go just for your everyday kind of vacation unless you're really wanting to live it up. But to celebrate something special like a honeymoon or an anniversary or a baby moon or something like that, then yeah, it's a beautiful location. So I can't say that it's not worth going. It's just a long and expensive vacation when you could do like a beautiful beach resort or something like that, or like go to Fiji or something like that where it's much closer by. So it just depends on your preference, but it was worth it for us.
Based on my follow-up question for you, so based on that, what you just said, did the Maldives offer you something, or did your experience in the Maldives offer you something that other beach places that you have been to did not? Was there something different for you about being there?
I mean, one of the reasons we chose the Conrad was that you can be in an overwater villa like straight with points, and that's not really possible many other places around the world. Now Hilton has, I think, like 5 or 6 different properties where you can book straight into an overwater villa. Now that they've added the SLH properties, but I think like Nick's probably more has a much better idea about this, but from what I'm aware, Bora Bora, I don't think you can, or like Tahiti and stuff, I don't think you can book straight into an overwater villa, and that was just something that we wanted to experience. So that was one of the reasons why it felt kind of worthwhile for us, because it was an experience we wouldn't have been able to have otherwise, especially because we had so many Hilton 3-night certificates to use.
And was the underwater restaurant Instagram and Pinterest makes it out to be?
It was, yeah. Thankfully, my wife's not like she is on Instagram, but she's not an Instagrammer, kind of like doing
Oh.
this kind of thing and like wearing the long flowy dresses and taking
Wait.
1,700 photos and things like that. Thankfully, yeah, that's not the
Different
case.
now.
Yeah. And so like we got some nice photos there, and we got like incredibly fortunate because we were the only ones eating there that night, and so we had the
That's
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
we had the
That's
restaurant
awesome.
to ourselves.
That's
They
cool.
they only fit 14 people in there, so it's going to be intimate. No one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, just having it be the two of us. The service was fantastic. The food was excellent. So yeah, that was a worthwhile experience, but it's also an expensive experience. And so
Yeah.
if you'd like to have a chance to do that, they do offer a drinks hour that costs, I think it's $125, or you can redeem 25,000 Hilton points for the experience, where you go down, you get a glass of champagne and some canapes, and then you get to be there and take your photos and things like that too.
Nice. All the
Did you,
influencers in the audience can use that one.
Did you etch peppers were here in the glass
Into
on
the
side
glass.
I think you're probably not allowed
No,
to tap
Bring your
the glass,
sandblaster
right?
from home.
Yeah.
Make
They're
all
Why
probably
is it
frowning
all
on
the
that, I guess.
always the British that do that?
All right, I have a question to roll us along here. Nick, I'm going to start with you.
Mhm. Okay.
How painful will the Virgin dynamic pricing be? This person wants to know.
On a scale of 1 to 10, probably 15.
Ooh,
I mean, it's
say
probably
more, please.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so it's impossible to say. But you know what? Let me take that back. I think it's probably going to be not good. But at the same time, the program already isn't that exciting for the most part because of the really high surcharges. So, is it going to be? I guess actually, when I think about it, it's going to be painful in the sense that it's going to be way, way worse than it is right now. I mean, I guess, but it's already pretty bad. So I don't know how much does that hurt? I'm not sure. But at any rate, we don't know, but it certainly seems like Delta is putting their thumbprint on it. So most likely it'll be pretty bad for Virgin's own flights. But, you know, their partner award charts are remaining intact. So at least for now, anyway, it seems you'll still be able to redeem the same number of points for partner flights. So that'll continue to be a decent deal in at least those handful of cases where they have good partner deals. And you know, I don't know, maybe we'll get lucky. And I think maybe at the beginning, we'll see a bunch of that saver stuff so that they can make it look like they've got more saver stuff than there probably will long term. So maybe at the very beginning, it'll be worth looking stuff up. Keep in mind, by the way, that surcharges tend to be high on Virgin Atlantic, but there's some markets you can begin in where the surcharges are not so high. Like departing South Africa, for instance, is far less than departing the UK. You know, it's still a lot, but it's far less anyway. So anyway, yep. That's my best crystal ball. It's probably
All right.
not going to be good.
We do our best with these predictions. All right, Tim. Is anyone finding it harder to use debit cards for money orders?
Nope, nobody.
Not you or anyone you've heard of?
Never heard of that before.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, undoubtedly. I think that especially if you compare it to the golden age of the golden age of yesteryear, like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it's gotten a lot more limited. And probably because there's a money laundering element to there, where there are some bad characters that actually are trying to do bad things using debit cards or and by debit cards, I guess I'm assuming that the person here doesn't mean debit cards, but they mean Visa,
Like Visa,
MasterCard, gift cards is what I'm assuming. And that said, you know, I know places that I know one guy who lived in a rural area that he could buy gift cards with a credit card for a long time. I know some people that they can pretty much do whatever they want, and it tends to be more in rural areas. I think the more rural you are, the more the less restrictions there are, and the more urban you are, the more people are on the lookout for scams, the more restrictions there are on what you can do where. But even just like, you know, I know a lot of people have a tremendously hard time what we call liquidating, so turning them into money orders of those $200 gift cards, those Pathword, formerly known as MetaBank gift cards that they sell at Office Depot and Staples used to be very easy to liquidate in a lot of different areas. And you could take a stack of 10 in and or more and knock them out in one sit. And now certain places you're limited to $99 swipes, and so you have to swipe it repeatedly over and over again. You can only do so many before that register gets locked out with certain retailers. So it really, I still say, I think it's debit cards, Visa, MasterCard gift cards for money orders have always been location dependent, and I think they're much more so. And I would say wherever you are, there's still stuff that can be done at the standards like Walmart and Kroger and things like that. And there are still safeguards to use in a lot of places, but not everywhere. But tends to be where the people that have the best arrangements, it tends to be like a local grocery store that actually sells money orders. And usually there can be a little more freedom there. But some of the restrictions are being placed on the issuers by the issuers of the cards in terms of how you use the card. And so all that to say, yeah, it's trickier than it used to be for sure.
Sad news. And the cynicism continues with this question, Stephen. Why is award availability to Asia so bad right now? And is there any relief in sight?
I haven't been doing any award searches to Asia recently, so I haven't experienced this personally. But it's hard to know, because I guess part of it would be when you're searching for, like, are you looking a year out? Are you looking for close in? Are you looking for like next spring or something like that? Because that could potentially affect it, whether or not you're searching for holiday kind of time when other people might be looking to use their miles at the same time. Is there any relief in sight? There's never any way of knowing whether or not award availability is going to improve, unfortunately. So I'd say just keep searching, keep using tools like points.yeah and things like that, and set up alerts where you can. And also just see if you can have any kind of flexibility. So rather than just searching from your airport to a specific airport that you're wanting to go to, maybe search from your airport to another airport in Asia where you might be able to get a cheap connecting flight, or look from other cities around the country, especially on the West Coast, but even somewhere like maybe Dallas or Chicago or something like that, where you might be able to get some decent enough routings, if that's easy enough for you to be able to get there, and then see if that gives you any more luck.
And I'm going to add
right.
to that, actually, that this is not a this is somewhat niche, but one of the reasons why I love Citi Thank You Points is that they're the only currency that transfers 1-to-1 to EVA Air or EVA Air, depending on who you are and what you're saying. And marvelous airline to get to Europe, terrible airline to get to Europe on. Really, really good airline to get to Asia. All these nonstop flights to Taipei. And they're a Star Alliance partner, and those flights do show up on Star Alliance programs, but they make a massive, massive amount more available to people that hold their own, to members of their own rewards program. For the Seattle to Taipei flight the other day, I was looking over spring break, couldn't find anything. I looked on EVA/EVA and found that the entire spring break, there were 4+ seats open for every single flight. And so to me, that's one of the big attractions of Citi Thank You Points as a transfer partner, is that it's that in terms of that specific program to get from the US to Asia, there can be marvelous availability. So just throwing that out there in case you have access to some thank you points.
Good
yeah,
tip.
and I'm sorry, I'll tag in too. So Stephen mentioned points.com is one of the tools you could use. Also, seats.aero could be useful, because then you can look at a much wider range of both departure and arrival airports. And so that might, if you're running into that kind of problem where you're like, wow, there's no availability at all, a tool like that can help you search just such a wide range of stuff all at once. And you may need to be willing to position to a different place. Also, keep in mind, sometimes connecting itineraries have more availability than itineraries that don't have connections. On my way back from our most recent challenge, I was finding Japan Airlines first class available as long as I was connecting it with an American Airlines flight afterwards. The nonstop itself wouldn't show up alone, but as long as I was going somewhere beyond Chicago on the Tokyo to Chicago, then all of a sudden it was available and I was able to book a seat on it. So a tool like Seats.Aero will probably help you find some gems like that now and then too.
And I just realized that Booking.com's advertising has clearly worked well on me because I said points.yeah because I had
I
in
know
my
you did.
Booking.com, Booking.yeah.
That's all right. It happens. I mean, there's so many because there's point.me, there's points. Yeah, there's a word tool. I mean, we have, of course, if you don't know it, just Google frequent miler, which award search tool is best. So you can see a comparison of all the various ones that are out there that might be useful for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop our how-to video for finding the possible awards with rooms.aero in the YouTube chat right now. So look for that.
That will be for hotel awards, the rooms.aero one, right?
True.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't
Which
have
is
time
also
to go
useful.
find the post on tools.
That's okay.
I'll do that later. Okay. It is now, that was Stephen. Nick. Which US airport hub do you like to transit through in ease of traveling through terminal, number of connecting destinations, and lounge access? Do you have a favorite?
No, because, well, I live in the Northeast, so the New York City airports are drivable for me, and so is Boston. So the place where I find an available award is really where I prefer to travel through. I mean, for some reason, I kind of like Dulles, but I think I like Dulles because I find flights from Dulles often. There's a decent range of flights there, and perhaps there's less competition than there is for the New York airports. I don't know, though. I mean, really, I like to go wherever it is I find availability. I don't usually pick based on connecting airport. Tim might be a better person to answer that because I feel like, Tim, you fly around the US more too than I do.
Yeah, but I was thinking that very thing, kind of what you were saying, is that the thing is being in Seattle and being an Alaska flyer, like I have a nonstop to effectively any major area that I want to go to in the US. And so I rarely ever connect in the US unless I'm going international. And so, I mean, taking it to that, yeah, I mean, it's hard to even say, I mean, for me on the West Coast, and this is just my part, I would tend to look at it less in terms of which hub do I like and which itinerary is best. And I really hate connecting now on the East Coast to Europe. I pretty much I want to be leaving from Seattle, San Francisco, Vancouver, or LA, maybe Phoenix or something like that. But I just don't. It's so many times connecting just adds so much time, especially to Europe. Like I can get to Europe in 8 hours, 8.5 hours. Well, I get to New York in 5, and then I have to have a layover, and then I have to board another 6.5 hour flight, and it's just a pain in the butt. But in terms of just like which airport do I like, I don't know. Most of them are international. I think that in the international area, like there's some nice lounges in San Francisco. There's a lot of connections out of San Francisco and LA. I don't know that for me personally that there's like one hub. In general, and this is just in general my impression, a lot of people are going to probably, send me mean messages after this. I find the East Coast airports that are older to be a little more grungy, a little harder to connect in. You have to walk more. You have to.
You won't hear me argue.
And whereas and LAX is that as well. LAX is like the one West Coast airport that's really old like that.
Whereas, you're from Seattle, you should like grungy.
I'm sorry.
Right.
You're from Seattle, you should like grungy.
Well
played. I'm from Nebraska,
not Seattle
That's why
that's right.
Otherwise,
it's not home.
Otherwise, I'd be like, there's mold at that airport. I love it.
Yeah.
I love LGA.
I was gonna say, which is why I love LaGuardia.
Well, the newer part of LaGuardia though is very nice. Like the renovated part of LaGuardia is quite nice.
Now it's like the
Of course it is, Nick. Of course it is.
No, I mean, I've flown out of LaGuardia like 3 times in the last 20 years, probably. So I don't have much frame of reference as to how bad parts were, but I do have a frame of reference because I flew relatively recently. How nice the nice part is. Pretty nice.
All right. I'm gonna shuffle things along. Steven, I think. Miles and Earnburn. Do we know
Miles,
who that is?
Miles
Ernenburn? Okay. Miles Ernenburn is saying that the recently AMEX Biz Gold to Plat upgrade offer links may not be safe to use. What is your take? And have we heard that?
We have heard that. I think like maybe Nick might be a better one because he's been like doing a little bit of like
Yeah.
I
research
think
into
Greg's the
this.
authoritative one. Why don't we ask? Oh.
Gotta interrupt Greg's vacation.
I
Gotta call the bat phone.
mean, we looked at it and we said you got to log in, and so if you got to log in, Amex has you log in to show that you're eligible for it. We figured that's probably safe. I mean, that was our consensus anyway. So, yeah, I saw the Miles Earn and Burn thing today, and so then I started digging into a little bit more to try and understand where that was all coming from, and I don't know. I dug enough that I have more of an idea now than I did before, but I'm not sure. Like when you ask me how dangerous is it, I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard of anybody having a problem because of it. That doesn't mean tomorrow they might not shut down half the known world, but I doubt it. So, and I think with something like that, it's unlikely to be an issue, but I guess I don't know. I don't have a good crystal ball there. We thought it was okay. I mean, we talked about it ahead of time and said we think this is probably going to be fine. So that was our best estimation.
Well, and I do want to call out in terms of, and one of the things that, and nothing against, this is nothing, I read Miles and Earn and Burn. I think it's a great source for stuff, but he used a link. So, and he said that he used a link. And so, I mean, it's safe enough for him to use it. So probably not going to see a lot of, I mean, just take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt in terms of what safety means here.
Makes sense. Nick, when do you
want me to
think...
do the next one, seeing as Nick?
Yeah.
the last one.
Steven, we'll just do a swap. When do you think the Strata Elite or Wells Beyond will come out? Those credit cards,
My
I
Magic
assume?
8 Ball is packed away, so I can't say for sure what that would be, but this is a tough one because there had been rumors about the new Citi Strata cards for, I don't know, was it 2 or 3 years before they simply rebranded the Citi Premier to the Strata Premier? Or actually, do you say Premier or do you say Premier over here? Because we say Premier.
That sounded the same to me.
Yeah.
It was close enough that
Okay.
I wouldn't
sounded
judge
I
much.
just realized that all this time
You're
I
getting an
probably-
American accent whether you
Yeah.
like it or not, Stephen Pepper. Because
I figured that I just realized I've probably been pronouncing it incorrectly the entire time. But yeah, there had been these rumors and all this trademarking going on for quite some time. But yeah, it took several years for it to come out. I would have thought that an elite card will come out sooner than like 3 or 4 years away, but it's Citi, and so there's simply no way of knowing. It wouldn't surprise me if it came out next year or in 2026, but it also wouldn't surprise me if we get to 2027 or 2028 and we're like, ooh, rumors, it's imminent that it's going to be coming out. So as for the Wells Fargo Beyond card, no idea about that either. I haven't heard any rumors like about that recently. Have you guys?
I mean, Wells Fargo seems to be I expected them to be much more active in terms of how they've been developing this whole program that they're doing. So if you had asked me that back in January, I would have said, well, probably pretty quick because they're going to want to get in on this. Now it's like, well, I don't know, whenever they get around to it, I suppose.
Well, we're sucking at telling the future as usual. But we'll keep doing it as long as you guys keep watching.
Let's say that I'm going to say Steven has not sucked at telling the future. Steven is
right.
Fortunately, he packed his Magic 8 Ball away because back in January, that thing was working terrific.
I mean, the problem with a lot of my predictions, though, I'm normally like 2 or 3 years ahead of time. And so that's been one of the more frustrating things, like looking back to past years. I've gotten a lot of my predictions correct, but they've just never been for the year that I've actually predicted it for. So I'm basically, if you take my predictions, just assume they'll happen a year or two after, and then you should be
a year or two down the road. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You know what? Before we hop to the next question, I've sat here thinking about how I answered that previous question about whether the Amex link was safe, and I feel like I didn't explain enough. And I don't want to get too deep into it and go back to it for too long, but I realize, I mean, if you're listening to this, you should probably get a better answer to your question. So backing up with the miles earn and burn thing, they said that the link probably wasn't okay because they thought some funny business was going on with the link. And so if you look at the details of the link, there was like a little code in there that sounded like it wasn't necessarily for an upgrade offer, that it was for maybe some other type of offer. And then the new link today has a little piece of code that says BPUG, like Business Platinum Upgrade. And so that seems like it was more supposed to be a link for the Business Platinum Upgrade. So I think people have been messing around with what's in the link a little bit. And I dug a little bit into the Chinese language forums at US Credit Card Guide because people had commented on our post previously asking, you know, if you speak Mandarin and you go to the US Credit Card Guide forums and you can find some more info. So you want to play around with Google Translate and dig into those forums a little bit, you can find some more info there. But anyway, that's where that was coming from. So I felt like when I thought about it, I was like, but those comments are on our blog. And so you can find that stuff. And if you came to this Ask Us Anything, then there you go. That's as much as I'll get into that. On with the show.
All right. Appreciate it. Actually, let's continue to pause for a moment so everyone can like this video and subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't already. They do it differently now, Tim. They do it this way, apparently. Okay. And if you subscribe, you'll get notifications for when our upcoming lives are. So and if you're listening to this in podcast format, I apologize that you're not seeing all the weird things we're doing with our hands to try to look cool.
Actually, I don't apologize. It's probably in your best interest.
Actually, I apologize to those watching us do that. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Tim, I think it's your turn for a question. In general, what services do you recommend for big or ongoing purchases that don't usually take credit cards? Other than the percent fee for paying with a credit card, should we be careful using these services?
So I'm not 100% sure what this question refers to. I'm assuming it's for things like Melio or Plastique, which are effectively services that allow you can pay you can pay with a credit card through them, and even a place that like only takes a check, for instance. You can actually have a check sent from your credit card, or not from your credit card, it's from them, but you pay them to send the check. There's several different fees or services that do this. Melio and Plastique are probably the most well known. And I don't think there's necessarily much to I mean, I think both those are the same fee structure now. I think it's 2.9% plus a 99-cent per transaction fee, if I remember correctly. And it may be different for debit cards. Like and yeah, but some let's just say in general, it tends to be around 3 or a little over 3%. And I would say the things to be careful of when using them is if you're using it to pay something like rent, first of all, you shouldn't be. You should just sign up for a Bilt card or go even through. But no, Bilt doesn't yet let the alliance go for free. But sign up for a Bilt card and earn points on your rent without actually having to pay any fee whatsoever. That's the best thing for renters. But anything else that is like that's time consumed or that's time sensitive, I've found in the past when I used to use Plastique to pay rent, that when you first set it up, it can take a while for that check to get there. So don't think, oh, it's the 28th and my rent's due on the 1st. I'm just going to go ahead and enter this payment in and it'll probably be there on time. It won't. Your rent will be late. So when you're first setting up a payee, that can be an issue. The other thing is just make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze for whatever you're doing. If you're burning through new card welcome offers, 3% to pay 3% in order to create that spend isn't necessarily a bad deal if you're getting 10-15% back on it. If on the other hand you're using it on your Alaska mileage card or your AA Mile Up or something, and you're getting 1 mile per dollar on it, you're effectively paying 3 cents per mile, and that's not worth doing. So I would say, to me, that's the biggest issue, is just make sure that whatever you're using it for, that whatever you're paying for it, let's just say 3%, that the fees justify the rewards that you're getting from it. Back in the day, it used to be there were some issues with AMEX and Plastique. I think those have all been rectified now. And so I think pretty much if either of those services take your cards, you're not gonna have to worry about cash advance or anything like that. Like I think that's all been sorted through. But
Yeah,
does
there's
anybody
different
else have?
types of
I mean,
cards though, different that can be used for different types of payments, right? So you can't
yeah,
use
yeah,
an,
yeah.
you can use an Amex for like your
Right,
taxes or tuition,
right,
but you can't use it for, I don't know,
right,
some other things.
right. But I mean, if for most part, if they take the card,
Yeah.
it's safe. They
Yeah.
will reject the card on the front end through Plastique or through Melio, as opposed to like finding having the charge go through and then you have a cash advance fee or something like that. That's a nasty
Mhm.
surprise.
Mhm. The other thing worth mentioning in terms of if you're asking about what to be careful about, if you're paying a new payee, it will give you the option sometimes to upload the bill to make sure that, to increase or to process it quicker. But at least in my account, it's often optional whether or not I upload a copy of the bill. If you don't, though, sometimes it'll get rejected. And so keep an eye on your account, make sure that the payment goes through, because there was one time when I thought it had gone through, and then I realized later on they had emailed asking for a copy of the bill for the particular thing, and I had missed that email, and so the payment didn't go. And so just keep an eye on it. But when I pay something and I pick the soonest possible day for delivery, it usually charges my card that day and is mailed out either that day or the next day. I use it quite a bit still, because in my case I still have a lot of fee-free dollars from referrals way back when.
Oh, right.
So I've been using it. I paid a bunch of property taxes over the last couple of weeks for family members and things like that. So the other thing is that some pays you can expedite a payment to, and others you just can't. That surprised me when I went to pay property taxes. I just assumed that I'd be able to expedite a payment to anybody, and as it turned out, some of the pays couldn't be expedited. But that's stuff you'll learn as you get using the platform. But I've never had like a check not show up in my case, and I've sent a lot of them. So there's that.
All right, that's helpful. Yeah, that's a lot of info. All right, Stephen, moving on. Delta Amex companion certificates terms are very restrictive. Any best practices to find eligible fare class for non-holiday weekends far in advance? Actually,
Because of
this
this is the
sounds
week where Greg's not
familiar.
actually here. However, we do have a couple of resources on the website that might be helpful. So Greg, about 6 months ago, wrote a guide about all the different companion certificates and their limitations and things like that. Plus, there's a how-to video that's been created as well about how to use those and how to look for eligible flights, even if you don't currently have any certificates. So I'll drop a couple of links to that in the comments on YouTube, so that way you can take a look, because I think that will be much more helpful, because I've never actually never had a Delta Companion certificate to have to use, and so I don't have a ton of recommendations there unless Tim or Nick do, but I don't think that they do either, because yeah, this is definitely Greg's area of expertise.
I literally just edited this video and I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember how you get to the fare class code.
It's in the video.
But what I did was I pasted the how-to video, which shows
Awesome.
all that
Thank
in
you.
the comments or
And
in the feed.
Cool. And I just shared the post about using certificates. So hopefully that will give you a good starting point.
Yeah, cool. It's possible we don't remember off the tops of our heads, and you're gonna have to look at our stuff.
Yeah.
If Greg was
There's this
here,
great
he would
site,
totally answer that.
frequentmiler.com. Check it out.
Between the four of us, we do not make a Greg, sadly.
Well, yeah,
We
and
miss him.
because Greg is so familiar with these, I don't like use a lot of brain power towards learning about the Delta companion certificates, for instance, because I know he forgets more every day about those than I will probably ever know. So I have not wasted brain capacity on that, because that's something he knows frontwards and backwards. So that's why the video would be a good place to start.
I will
Every
say
day
too,
at Frequent Miler is Ask Greg Anything Day.
yeah, AGA. We like to say AGA.
Yes. You were going to add something, Tim?
No, I was just going to say that just from my gleanings from what Greg has said in the past, is what you're thinking of in terms of non-holiday weekends far in advance is the key. That the further in advance you're doing the stuff, the more easy it is to, or the more easily you can find those fare classes. That's it. Just
All
affirming
right.
that.
Helpful. All right. Next question for Nick. What has actually, let's make this an everyone, but we'll start with Nick. What has been the most outstanding deal so far in 2024, in your opinion? And then as an aside, this person would like a coffee break episode about anything we find outstanding like that. But first, what do you think the most outstanding deal of 2024 has been so far?
That's a really good question.
Mm.
I'm not sure. Somebody here is gonna
Anyone
pop
have
in
something
and
at the
yeah, I don't
ready?
know. I don't have a go ahead.
Um,
I see Steven percolating.
basically, we keep a record for
I
like some
know.
possible candidates for deal of the year, and so I was just having a look at those. So back in on January 1st, Built had the transfer bonus of up to
Ah,
150% to Flying Blue, Virgin, and IHG. So that's one of them. Amex had the plus 10x or plus 10 restaurants referral offer, which was that on up to 25,000 spend,
yeah.
I feel like. Yeah, so
Hmm.
you could potentially earn 250,000 membership rewards off of that, which was a potentially great offer because I think that was available on Amex Gold cards as well. So you'd be earning 14x on restaurant spend, which is absolutely superb. There was the 100% transfer bonus to Alaska from Built. There was the 120K Ink Business Preferred offer where you could also get 40,000 ultimate rewards as a referral. So that was 160,000 between you if like you referred your partner. Um, and that's kind of like the main like proper deals, it seems, certainly in terms of what we've made notes of so far, that seem like proper candidates for deal of
Yeah,
the
I mean,
year.
I guess the 250,000 point Amex Business Platinum offer that we've seen kind of come
Yeah.
and go is probably also worth a mention there because I mean, 250,000 points with one. I mean, it requires a lot of spend, I know, but 250,000 points with one card is pretty
Pretty
notable. So,
amazing.
yeah, so I feel like that should probably be up there. I'm pretty jazzed up that I was able to get that recently. So, Tim, you have any other thoughts about that or other deals?
I don't know if I don't know. I think it's sort of it's not as blingy as all this other stuff, but honestly, I think the fact that within this year so quickly, the one-to-one transfers from Hawaiian to Alaska came through, and the Amex membership rewards transfers to Hawaiian are still going through, which means that effectively, for at least some undetermined amount of time, Alaska is now a membership rewards partner at a one-to-one ratio. And that's pretty, I mean, it's hard to like, it doesn't seem that crazy, but given that for all these years, everybody's been trying to get Alaska miles and saying, oh, but you can't earn them, you can't earn them, you can't earn them. And then they became a built partner, but the problem is you can't earn built points. So I would say that's something that this year has been pretty, and there was a lot of debate about whether the Amex transfer bonus would still remain in effect once that one-to-one transfer happened, if the transfer would be one-to-one, all those sorts of things. So that's the only other one I would probably add to that.
As for the coffee break answer, that's something we've discussed. It's more logistically difficult than it seems, though, because we're not in an office together every day. So when something happens, we've got to coordinate schedules and times to get online and record it and then edit it and get it out. So it's not logistically as simple to get it out and published as quickly as we might like to. But certainly we've had it in mind that if there's some amazing deal that people need to know about, that yes, we would perhaps publish something out of the blue about it. But I don't think we've necessarily seen that type of okay, this is only going to last a very short period of time, so we need to publish this right now. Oh, you know what, yes, we did have that, didn't we? Or was that last year? When did the Qatar booking JetBlue in business class, when did that come out? That was last year. That was November of last year. Yeah, so that's not a 2024, but that's the kind of thing that okay, you can book at that point. You could book JetBlue Mint to Europe for 38,000 Avios, and if we saw that again, we might try to get something out quickly. But the chances that we're able to record it and publish it before it dies in a situation like that are just more slim than you might imagine.
However, that will be
Yeah.
published on frequentmiler.com. So sign up for
Yes.
True.
email notifications.
Yes.
Don't forget we have a blog as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the instant emails, that's,
many
if you want to know about those things when those things happen, then, you want to sign up for the instant email alerts so that you'll get an email right away when that kind of thing breaks.
Yeah. All right. So this is another everybody question, story time. We're going to start with Tim. What was your most difficult or challenging travel experience, and what did you learn from it?
Mm.
Grant always has these great questions.
Oh, is this a Grant question? Shout out,
Yeah, this is a great question. You could have a podcast
You
of
can
we
Oh,
answer
Grant
Grant's
questions.
questions.
Totally. Grant, what I would let's send your most difficult and challenging travel experience and what you learned from it.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear it. So I don't you know, I mean there's been some snafus over the years. I would say that so on my honeymoon was we went around the world in 100 days, but it was all a surprise for my wife. So my at that point newlywed wife, where she didn't know how long we were going to be gone and where we were going. It was all hidden from her, and she didn't know until we actually started to go there. Like she actually boarded planes without knowing where she was going to end up.
That's cool.
Something that's trickier to do these days, I will say, that when you say don't tell the person where they're going and they're like, well, wait a minute, is there somebody being trafficked here? But all that to say, so, and this was back in the time before really online booking had taken hold across so I mean I was spending a lot of time. I would be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like calling somebody in South Africa, making reservations, stuff like that. And I had done medical research to pay for this. So I had put my body under the microscope, so to speak, and but I did not have a lot of money by any stretch of the imagination. I had just saved up for this trip. So and then that summer that we got married, the US dollar took a big plunge right before we left. So all of a sudden I'm looking at all these bookings that I made in foreign currencies and like, oh no, are we going to get home? So, and within that context, we were in South Africa in Kruger National Park, driving down a dirt road. My wife was driving, and way further. I mean, it was a fine road. A lot of the roads in Kruger are dirt. They grade them regularly. It's really easy. It's a great place to go. But there was probably, I don't know, maybe 300 or 400 yards in front of us, a rock that was sticking out of the middle of the road that looked sort of like a shark's tooth. And I thought, oh, she's going to see that. And we got closer to it. And I didn't want to be the nagging guy that's like trying to tell the wife how to, like, oh, she's going to see that. And then at the last second, I'm like, just see the rock. And she wanted to save the tires. So unfortunately drove the car directly over the center. And we heard this.
I probably would have done the same thing.
I looked behind and I could see this black trail following.
Oh, so bad.
And so, long story short, I did not react well. And I was worried about getting eaten. I didn't want to
Right. Nobody wants
what
that.
time
We were
of
off the
day
main
was it?
road.
Right,
We were off
right.
the main road.
Who knows when you're going to see somebody, right?
So I'm like, well,
Was
we
this
got to
evening
drive
time?
back up to the main road. And so we drove up, and I'm like, this is a bummer because there's a chance that we could like crap out the engine because there's not a lot of oil in this engine now. Drove up to the main road. It was literally a 12, 13-hour day. We had to get a ride to a
Wow.
guard station from these folks, and then call the tow truck or call the folks to tow it across to the other end of the park, and then call the rental car company, and they had to tow another car to us. It was this whole thing. And we got the car all the way to the garage on the other side of Kruger. And then right when the guy was pulling it off of the flatbed truck that they had towed it over on, he like revved it up to try to get it going, and the engine quit. So I knew at that point that we would be not only on the hook for the oil pan and everything underneath, but we're going to actually have to pay for an engine overhaul for this vehicle. And I think what I have learned since then is it's just money. And something that at that point seemed so incredibly like, oh my Lord. And when that first happened, I was terrible to my wife, and we had to talk about in the car. I had to apologize to her later. I mean, I was really bad. I was like 23 at the time and didn't, but there's so many things that we stress out about, and there's a phrase that I love that is in business called the cost of doing business, that I love in just a general thing. Like, people die in this world. There are really bad things that happen. A few $100 here and there or whatever, in the grand scheme of things, 10 years later, you're not even going to think about it. And so I think to me that developed where looking at like, there's a cost of living, there's a cost of traveling, and sometimes crap happens. So
Yeah.
that's my,
The
Here,
cost
here.
of solving problems. Yeah, that's
what about you, Carrie?
that's a
This
doozy.
is an all play.
Mine is kind of standard. I'm sure it's happened to so many people. We had a rental car that got broken into. All our stuff got stolen, including our passports. This was in Spain, and at the time I was nomadic, and so I literally carried all my credit cards, and we were doing this hobby, so there were like 30 of them or something. And so all of those were stolen. I had my grandma's journal with me because I was typing it up for her, for the
Brutal.
family. She had just passed away, and so that was stolen. But actually the worst part of that, so we were able to kind of like, figure out a way to borrow cash from the friend we were traveling with who happened to have his debit card still on him, that kind of stuff. But the dumbest part of the whole thing was when we we went to the embassy, got these temporary passports. We had like everything we needed to get back to the States. And then we landed in LAX super late, super exhausted. We literally have our things in like trash bags. Like we bought just like an outfit to wear, and we just had like the shopping bags that they came in. So we looked like homeless people, and we tried to check into a hotel we had booked on points, and we used my sister's free night cert because she owed us one. And they wouldn't let us check in unless we could put $250 cash down because we didn't have any card for them to hold. Usually they want a card to hold. And we were like, well, we don't even have debit cards to get cash. So we're trying to figure out how to get cash. We're going all over LA trying to find MoneyGrams that are open. And it did not work. And then our phones die. And then it didn't work. And we were begging the guy, like, he was like, well, unless your sister can come down here and verify your identity, and she lives in Ohio and we're in LA, this guy had no sympathy for us. And actually, Tashir, who some folks in this hobby know, he came through for us. We kind of posted an SOS on Twitter or something, and Tashir happens to live by there and swung by and was like, these guys exist and they're who they say they are.
Wow.
And we got, as an apology, we got like 2 free drink vouchers to the bar that had closed 5 minutes before we got there. So anyway, it was really
Rough.
stupid.
Rough.
Yeah.
Wow.
How about you, Nick and
Oh, I
Steven?
can't compete. Forget about it. Like my travels have been all roses and sunshine comparatively.
You had to catch barf in a hat recently.
Well, I
feel
mean, I
like
did.
that counts.
I've had some things here and there, but I can't compete. I'm gonna wave the flag there. I don't. I'm set.
Steven, what do you think?
I mean, most of our issues with traveling have related to flights. So years ago, my wife and I had gone to Spain, and we'd rented like an Airbnb type style vacation rental place. And the instructions were to leave the keys inside, close the door, and then leave. Only problem was that in order to get out of the kind of like gated walled complex, you have to have a key in order to get through the gate. And so those were inside. What we hadn't realized was that we were supposed to open that gate first and then go back, drop the keys off, and then close that door. So we were basically stuck in this courtyard for like an hour and a half or something like that, because it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and so no one was getting up in any of these other apartments, and so we couldn't get out. And we had our flight leaving, and it was like a Ryanair or EasyJet flight or something like that. So they're not going to be flexible. We'd already had issues getting to Spain anyway, and so thankfully someone came out. We got to our flight with like 20 minutes to spare. Another time we were flying from Norfolk, Virginia to Bali for our 15th anniversary. The connecting flight from Norfolk to New York got cancelled. And so this was like super last minute. It didn't look like we had any options. But I think Greg I put like an SOS out on our Slack, and like Greg came up with the idea of trying to get to DC and flying out of there because there was a Cathay Pacific flight from DC to I guess Narita, and then on to not Narita, to Hong Kong, sorry, and then on to Bali from there. And so because we were in Norfolk, we rented a one-way rental car, drove up 3 hours and got there again just with a little bit to spare. During COVID times in 2021, we were flying to Dubai for my wife's birthday, and we'd gotten our COVID tests in what we thought was enough time. So it was supposed to be within 72 hours of when your flight leaves to Dubai.
Oh.
Because we had a connecting itinerary through New York, we were perfectly fine based on when we were leaving from Chicago. But unfortunately, the flight we were fine like for the flight leaving from somewhere basically, but then the later flight going from somewhere onto Dubai was going to it was something like 72 hours and 45 minutes or something like that. And so they wouldn't accept our COVID tests. And so we couldn't actually take those flights. Thankfully, that meant that we were able to get last minute Emirates first class award availability for both of us. And so that one worked out pretty well.
And then less of a horror story.
Yeah, and then the other more recent one was we were going to Australia. I completely forgot to sort out our visas ahead of time. We were at the airport, seemed like it was fine. My wife, when filling out hers, accidentally put down that she was a criminal rather than not a criminal. And so hers
that has
rejected.
To be a heart sinking in your chest moment to realize you did that.
And so, yeah, that was really painful because it was too late to be able to get that fixed. And so we had to cancel those Australia plans. We ended up in Mauritius instead. But I think what I learned from that was, if possible, book in a refundable way, because other than I think we might have booked a cash flight to Bali before, but because back then we were actually flying economy, like now it's like, what was I thinking? But for all of these other ones, we were flying. Actually, in the Spain one, because that was back in the day, and Ryanair and that wasn't miles. But the trip to Dubai and the trip to Australia were both booked in business class with miles. We were able to cancel literally at the last minute, get all of our miles back, and then rejig our plans and so yeah, that's my big takeaway.
Pretty crucial.
Give yourself as much flexibility because you don't know either when you're going to do something stupid or you'll just be super unfortunate. So,
yeah, I forgot to do what did I learn from my situation? I guess just like carry way more cash on hand than
you learned that when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, and that's not even the only thing that went wrong with that trip.
Well, you learned never to go. You've never been back to Spain since, right?
No, I have not been back to Spain since.
You learned not to go to Spain.
I would go back, but I feel a little bit burned. And I'll probably get hate in the comments for that, but I did have some sympathy for people who just my sister didn't get a credit card for years, and they wouldn't have even taken a debit card at this particular hotel. I realized what do people do to check into a hotel if you're the kind of person who just decides not to have a credit card, because that's what they want to hold your anyway. So I learned cynicism is what I learned.
A little healthy cynicism.
You're clearly not British, because otherwise you would have had that inbred in you. So
right. I've actually never been back to L. No, I have. I've been back to LA since. Okay, we're gonna do a few more real questions also.
We try and speed round a few of these here.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that. These are not usually speed roundable, but we'll see. Nick, what do you guys or you think about Aeroplan card in the context of them extending the PYB, pay yourself back for travel at 1.25 cents per point, especially with possible transfer bonus from Chase? Good way to cash Chase Ultimate Rewards points?
Maybe. It's... maybe. I don't get super excited about 1.25 cents per point with Chase points. That's not how I would generally prefer to use my Chase points. At the same time, it's not a bad redemption, especially if you're able to, because you can book travel however it is you want, rather than being stuck booking through their portal. You could book travel some other way, and and so you could book directly with Hyatt, for instance, and earn your Hyatt points and elite night credit and all the rest of that, and pay yourself back at 1.25 cents per point. When you mentioned transfer bonus from Chase, my biggest hesitation with that is that they were pretty clear that it's not it's not unlimited. And although I guess maybe after this year, it's going to go back to the regular limit of 50,000 points per year. I think, or was it just through the end of last year that it was unlimited? I can't remember now. It was quote unquote unlimited, but not really unlimited. Some people got shut down for doing too much in terms of transferring in and then using pay yourself back. And so that made me a little uncomfortable with it. But for the 50,000 points per year that you can do that with, I mean, I can see where that could be appealing for somebody who just doesn't want to use cash. I personally, I use my Ultimate Rewards points usually for Hyatt, usually for significantly more than 1.25 cents per point. So I wouldn't get super excited about using Chase points that way. Now, Aeroplan points, if you just earn a lot of Aeroplan points from flying Aeroplan, or you get the credit card and get the welcome bonus, and you're like, I'm not going to use Aeroplan for one reason or another. It doesn't fit my travel patterns, and so I'd rather redeem those points this way. Then I can see the value in doing that. It might be fun to redeem for some kind of unorthodox travel, but so there you go. I'm lukewarm.
All right. I think I have enough questions lined up that we could maybe try to do fast speed. We'll see. Tim.
Yes.
Does Amex allow stacking of offers, specifically looking to stack a $100 credit with a 15K membership rewards point bonus for a leading hotels resort in Rome? The hotel is listed on both Amex offers.
If you have two Amex offers on the same card that can both be redeemed, usually they will both credit. Now, I'll put an asterisk on that and say that sometimes if it's for the same provider, I've experienced it where you click on one and then it actually removes the other one if you have two for the same brand. But I've also had before where I've actually had two for the same brand on the same card, and it worked. Now, the one thing that you could do as well, that I've done before, even if they're not on the same card, is you could have it on two separate cards, each Amex offer, and then split the bill at the hotel. So long as the total sum qualifies, you would be able to trigger those. But if you need the same amount to trigger both of those Amex offers, my experience in the past has been that yes, if they're both on the same card, they'll both be triggered. Anybody else have any conflicting data points to that?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, speed around on to Stephen. If Barclays Aviator Red converts to Citi Strata, can I product change to a custom cash and immediately apply for Citi Strata for the sign-up bonus?
I mean, has there been any indication it would get converted to a Citi Strata? I wouldn't have thought, like, if the Barclays Aviator cards go over, if anything, it would go over to a Platinum Select Advantage card. I can't imagine it would go to a Strata, so I don't think that would be an issue. If that is something you're concerned about, it would make more sense, I guess, to apply for the Citi Strata beforehand rather than waiting for any kind of conversion, I think, because then you would then be able to downgrade one of them to a custom cash anyway, just in case downgrading to a custom cash would mean that you couldn't then get the sign up.
But you could
I
have
don't
the
think this is going to
Strata.
be an issue whatsoever, just because it's not going to convert to a Strata.
Well, and even if it did, that wouldn't prevent you from getting the welcome bonus on a new Strata. Citi's rule isn't that you can't have the card; it's that you can't have earned the bonus within X amount of time. So you would not have earned the bonus on a Strata, so it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not. I don't think, like Steven said, it's not going to convert into a Strata. It'll convert to an Advantage card if it converts. So that's really not going to happen the way you think it is. But even if it did, that wouldn't prevent you from going ahead and applying for another Strata, I don't think.
All right, last question for Nick. Is there any airline program where if I buy my ticket with miles, I can still earn miles?
No, not officially. And you're not supposed to earn miles when you're redeeming miles. Now, you can earn elite credit with Delta when you're redeeming Delta Sky Miles on Delta flights, and same is true with Virgin Atlantic. But in terms of redeemable miles, no, there's no program where you're officially going to earn miles, not to my knowledge anyway, when you're redeeming miles. However, there are times when it might happen as a happy accident. And if somebody has found one that consistently works every single time, they're probably not going to tell us about it, or they're going to keep it to themselves. So, if you get lucky in that kind of a situation, then, be happy. I always put in a frequent flyer number, and I don't put in, so I always change the frequent flyer number just in case maybe that happens that I earn some miles, because I know I'm not going to earn miles with the program that I used the miles to redeem with. So for instance, what I'm saying here is if I use my American Airlines miles to book a flight on Iberia to Spain, I would change the frequent flyer number and not use my American Airlines one, maybe I'd use my Finnair frequent flyer number and figure, oh, maybe that'll work. Although they use Avios, so I don't know, maybe Qantas or something. I might switch to a different partner or a non-alliance partner, and every now and then you're going to get lucky. I talked about it recently because I had booked JetBlue Mint with Qatar Avios, and I got tiles and redeemable miles. Not a lot, but I got some anyway for that JetBlue flight. So, and again, I put in my JetBlue TrueBlue number. Like I switched it to my JetBlue TrueBlue number, not expecting that. Actually, in that case, I did it just because I wanted to be able to see the flight in the JetBlue app easily. Is why I did it. And I was a lucky accident, I guess, that I earned a few miles. It wasn't a lot though.
Nice. All right.
It's also, well, before I want to, as an asterisk on that, the one thing I do want to just point out real quickly is that if you buying tickets through the transferable currency portals, for instance, your Amex Travel will count as a cash ticket.
Great
And
point.
so you will earn all of the points and miles and redeem and elite miles or elite qualifying miles or credits, however they do it, that you would expect to do on a cash ticket. And especially with both Chase and Amex Business Platinum, where you can redeem them for 1.54 cents towards cash tickets and then earn miles and redeem and elite qualifying miles, that can sometimes be a sneakily terrific option. So that's kind of the one way that you
Great
can
point.
kind of, and then
I love all things sneakily terrific. All right. That brings us to the end of our Ask Us Anything. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe so that you can be notified for our next Ask Us Anything, which is usually scheduled for the first Wednesday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And so hope